My mother-in-law tried to drug me at dinner, but I switched the glass, and her husband drank it. Before I begin, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever sat at a table where everyone was smiling, talking about weather travel wine, and yet something in the air felt wrong? Have you ever accepted a drink from someone who was smiling just a little too hard? And in that moment, did your body freeze while your mind whispered, "This isn't kindness"? That's where my story begins, with a glass and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was a Sunday evening, early spring. Her birthday dinner. Veronica's house always looked like something from a lifestyle magazine. Flawless countertops, perfectly folded napkins, light jazz playing like we were in a hotel lobby, not someone's living room. Outside, the mountains were just starting to shed their snow. Inside, everything was tightly controlled, just like her. Charles was talking about his latest investment deal. Maya's brother Liam was complimenting the roast. I was counting the minutes until it was polite to leave. And then Veronica stood up with a flourish, hands clasped together like she was announcing a royal decree. "Sangria for dessert," she said, her voice syrupy. She walked toward the kitchen. "I'll give you a hand," I offered. She hesitated, almost flinched, but then smiled. "That's sweet, Ethan, but I've got it." I followed anyway, slowly. She didn't know I'd seen her tuck something in her sleeve earlier. A small vial, colorless liquid. The kind of thing that doesn't come with a recipe card. I stepped into the kitchen, just as she leaned over the counter, adding something to a glass. Just one. When she saw me, her entire body tensed. Then she straightened and turned too quickly with both glasses in her hands. "This one's for you," she said, raising one of them. "Special recipe. For my favorite son-in-law." I smiled, then reached out and gently took both glasses. "Let me help carry them," I said. She didn't stop me, and just like that, the game changed. Back at the table, Charles barely looked up from his phone. I handed him the glass Veronica had prepared, set it right in front of him with a quiet, steady hand. "Sangria, sir." He grunted and took a sip. I sat down, didn't touch mine, said I preferred water after dinner. No one questioned it. The conversation moved on, but I watched. Not them, her. Veronica's smile had started to slip. Her eyes flicked to the glass, to her husband, then back to me. She knew. And I knew. She knew. 45 minutes later, Charles was pale, sweating, asking where the washroom was, then running. The sounds from the hallway were not subtle. Everyone looked around, confused, concerned. Veronica froze, and I sat there, silent, watching her break. I didn't get angry. I didn't accuse her. I just folded my napkin, sipped my water, and reached down to slide the untouched glass, the one meant for me, back into my coat pocket. That moment changed everything. Because the thing she underestimated was that I don't need to raise my voice to be heard. I only need the truth and the patience to let it surface. What happened next? She wasn't ready for that, but I was. People think when you're betrayed, the hardest part is the pain. It's not. It's the quiet, the silence after you realize someone smiled at you, hugged you, and then made a plan to break you. That kind of silence doesn't echo. It lingers. That's what stayed with me after the dinner. Not anger, not fear, just a stillness that wrapped around my thoughts like cold smoke. I couldn't let it go, and I didn't want to. I needed proof. I woke up early the next morning and stared at the glass on my desk. The one she meant for me, still untouched, still with that faint shimmer across the top. I placed it gently in a padded case, zipped it shut, and drove across the bridge to an old connection I hadn't seen in 2 years. Dr. Raymond used to shoot landscape photography before he went full-time into forensic toxicology. I'd done some portfolio work for his lab's outreach project. We'd kept in touch, but never on these terms. When I walked in, he raised an eyebrow. "Ethan, this a work question?" I shook my head. "It's personal." He looked at the glass, then back at me. "Family." I nodded once. He didn't ask more. He took the case with two gloved hands and said, "Give me a few days." That night, I didn't tell Maya. I couldn't. Not yet. She was humming softly in the kitchen, folding laundry while the dog snored near the couch. Everything looked normal, sounded normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. So I said I had an upcoming gallery project and needed space to focus. She smiled, kissed my cheek, told me she understood. I hated lying, but I hated silence more. 3 days later, Raymond called. He didn't waste time. There were benzodiazepines in the sample, he said. Not a huge dose. Not fatal, but enough to knock someone out for hours. Possibly long-term memory gaps, depending on weight food intake tolerance. I stood there in my garage, holding my phone in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. I hadn't been working on anything, just pretending to. Would it show up in a blood test, I asked. If it's fresh, yes, he replied, but not after a few days. Why? No reason, I said quietly. Can you send me the full lab report? He hesitated. You okay, Ethan? I swallowed. Yeah, just needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. That night, I printed the report, slipped it into a folder with her name on the tab, Veronica. Then I began digging, not out of revenge, out of necessity. I searched public records, prescription data, local clinic logs. Turns out, Veronica had been prescribed Xanax by 3 separate doctors, none of whom seemed aware of the others. Small doses, overlapping timelines. She'd been refilling them aggressively. That wasn't all. There were whispers around the neighborhood, incidents at events, a stolen brooch at a country club mixer, an argument at a Christmas gala. Nothing ever reported, but it was enough to make people keep their distance. Maya never talked about it. She brushed it off as her mom being intense, but the truth was sitting in my hand now. Page after page, all pointing in one direction. I wasn't the first, and if I stayed silent, I wouldn't be the last. One evening, while Maya was brushing her teeth, I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked like someone who didn't belong in their own story. That needed to change. So I waited. And 2 nights later, Maya came into the living room holding her phone. My mom needs new headshots for the charity site, she said, clearly surprised. She specifically asked if you'd take them. I didn't blink. Sure, I said softly. Really? I smiled. Why not? And just like that, I had my opening. She thought I was still playing her game. She hadn't realized yet. The rules had changed. There's a strange calm that comes when you know exactly what someone tried to do to you, and you realize they don't know you're holding the truth in your pocket. That Saturday, I drove alone. Camera bag in the trunk, a sealed envelope in the glove compartment. When I pulled up to Charles and Veronica's house, it was already set up like a photo shoot. Fresh flowers on the patio, new cushions, a perfectly coordinated outfit on Veronica, right down to the soft pearl earrings she always wore when she wanted to look gentle. She met me at the door. "Charles is at the office," she said as if I'd asked. "It's just us today." I nodded, stepped inside, and set my gear down. Before she could start with poses and lighting preferences, I reached into my coat pocket and handed her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked, her voice lighter than it should have been. "I thought you might want to see it before we begin." She opened it slowly. The lab report was on top. Toxicology results. Time-stamped. Signed. Underneath that, printouts of her overlapping prescriptions. Names of the doctors. Doses. Dates. I watched her eyes move across the page. Her hands began to tremble. "This is absurd," she whispered. "I would never." "We both know what happened," I said, my voice low even. "But what I don't know is why." She held my gaze for a long moment. Then something snapped. "You're not good enough for Maya," she said. "You never were." My jaw tightened, but I said nothing. She kept going. "You take pictures. You wander around. You build nothing. You offer no future. A man should provide security, stability, not art. And drugging your daughter's husband gives her security." My words hung in the air like fog. She stepped forward, face flushed now. "It wasn't going to hurt you," she snapped, "just enough to make you sick. Make you miss that gallery opening." So Maya would start to question finally how unreliable you really are. And there it was, the plan. It hadn't been rage. It hadn't been hate. It was strategy. Cold, intentional sabotage. I let the silence stretch. Then I nodded. "Here's what happens next," I said quietly. "You're going to tell Charles what you did. And you're both going to start treating me with respect, not because you've changed, but because the alternative is Maya seeing who you really are." She let out a sharp, brittle laugh. "She'll never believe you over us." I reached down and zipped up my camera bag. "She won't have to," I said. "She'll believe the lab, the overlapping prescriptions, the neighbors you've already lost, and the security footage I'm betting you forgot was rolling that night." Her face paled. Stillness. For the first time, she looked unsure. I didn't wait for more words. I walked to the door, opened it, let the breeze hit my face, and stepped out without taking a single photograph. That night, my phone buzzed. Maya looked up from the couch. "It's from my mom," she said. "She's crying. Says you were cold, harsh, that you ruined the session, that you were threatening." I didn't lie. I couldn't anymore. I showed her the report, the documents, the text messages from her mother, ones she'd never seen, filled with passive digs and private jabs over the years. Maya read them all. She sat in silence, then said softly, My mom wouldn't do this. But her voice didn't sound certain anymore. And for the first time, that was enough. Truth doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes in a plain envelope. No name, no return address, just your own name scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a note. You should see this. Emily. I knew who she was. Maya's sister-in-law. Married to Liam. Polite, careful, always watching but never speaking, until now. I plugged the drive into my laptop and waited. What came on screen wasn't blurry or subtle. It was crystal clear. Security footage. From Veronica and Charles's own kitchen. There she was, Veronica standing at the counter holding a glass, opening a vial, tipping the contents in, stirring just once. Then, the sound of me walking in. Her turn, her smile, the switch. But that wasn't the part that made my chest tighten. It was what came after. The next video showed the two of them arguing. Charles and Veronica, standing in the living room. Charles shouting his voice loud, raw. "This isn't the first time you've done this," she fired back. He was never supposed to drink it. That idiot ruined everything. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Don't worry. I've already started talking to Maya about their marriage problems. Just planting seeds. By the time I'm done, she'll think leaving him was her idea." I paused the video, hands trembling. This wasn't just about me. This was about control, patterned, planned, repeated. I picked up the phone and called Emily. Her voice was steady but soft. "They did the same to me," she said. "Said I wasn't good enough. Said Liam could do better. They made my life hell for 2 years, until I gave in." I asked why she hadn't spoken up. She sighed. "Because Liam believes everything Charles tells him. He worships him, still does. But I saw what they were doing to you, and I couldn't stay silent again." The next morning, I received a text from Charles. "Let's talk. Just us. Man to man." He picked the country club. Of course he did. Private room. Leather chairs. Bourbon waiting. He poured 2 glasses and slid one toward me. "Look," he said with that same controlled voice I'd heard a dozen times. "Families are complicated. Veronica can be protective, but she means well. Drugging someone means well." He waved it off. "She takes anxiety meds. Probably got confused. Mixed up the glasses." I didn't flinch. "I have the security footage." He stopped. Completely. Like someone had shut off his battery. Then, a shift. Colder. "What do you want?" he asked. "Money. Is that what this is about?" "I always knew. You married Maya for stability." I leaned forward. "I want you to stop." "Stop what?" "Trying to convince Maya I'm not good enough. Stop interfering. Stop pretending this is about love when it's always been about control." He smiled thinly. "You think you're the first. Ask her about Nathan, the fiancé before you." My chest tightened. I didn't say a word. He kept talking. Nice guy. Doctor. We didn't like his background. Took 6 months, but we convinced her he was cheating. Planted messages. Broke them up clean. She came home crying to Daddy. History repeats, son. On the way home, I made a call. Maya's old roommate, Bethany. Her voice was quiet. Oh, God. Nathan. Yeah, he was perfect for her. But her parents? They tore that apart from the inside. She thought he lied, thought he betrayed her. But it was them, all of it. I didn't confront Maya. Not yet. Instead, I began gathering every record, every story, every pattern. I called Nathan. Reluctantly, he sent me the emails. The same lies, the same manipulation. I reached out to friends of Maya's who had quietly drifted away. The same theme echoed over and over. Anyone who supported her independence was removed, isolated, buried. Vanessa Emily's real name sent more footage, clips of Charles and Veronica whispering in the kitchen, planning. Once they divorce, she'll move back home. We'll introduce her to someone new. I compiled it all, put it on OneDrive, and then I invited Liam and Emily over. Didn't tell Maya, didn't say why, just waited until dessert. Then I plugged in the laptop, turned on the TV. There's something you all need to see. What happened that night would change everything. There are moments in life when the mask doesn't just slip, it shatters. That night, with the TV screen glowing across the dining room, nobody said a word. The security footage played one scene after another. Veronica in the kitchen, the vial, the switch, the argument with Charles after it all went wrong, and then the quiet scheming, the whispers about Maya. The plan to make her think divorce was her own idea. Maya sat perfectly still. Her eyes didn't blink. Liam kept muttering, "That's not them. That's not my parents," like saying it might make it true. When the last clip ended, I stood up and shut the laptop. No one moved. No one breathed. And then Maya turned to me. Tears had pooled in her eyes, but her voice was clear. "Why didn't you show me this sooner?" I looked at her gently. "Because you needed to see all of it. Not just what they did to me, but what they've been doing to you your entire life." Emily touched Liam's arm. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They did it to us too." Liam looked at her stunned. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes welled up, but she didn't blink. "Why do you think they finally accepted me after James was born?" "Because a grandchild gave them leverage. Before that, they tried to split us every chance they had." Liam's face turned white. "You never told me." "I tried," she said softly, "but you didn't want to hear it." That night, Maya didn't speak much. She lay beside me in bed, her back turned, staring into the dark. But I felt her hand reach for mine under the blanket. "I need time," she whispered, "to process all this." "I understand," I said. She paused. "But I believe you, and I'm sorry I doubted you." The next morning, Veronica called. Maya answered on speaker. "Darling," her mother said, cheerful as ever, "your father and I think it might be good for you to come stay with us for a while. Sometimes space brings clarity." Maya cut her off. "I've seen the videos." Silence. Veronica tried to recover. "What videos?" "The ones where you drugged Ethan, where you and Dad plotted to break us up." There was another pause. Then her voice changed. "Whatever he's shown you, it's been manipulated. You know Ethan has always been jealous of our family." Maya didn't raise her voice, but it was firm. "We'll be coming over tonight, all of us. Liam, Emily, Ethan, and me. We're going to talk about this. As a family, no more lies. After she hung up, she looked at me. They're going to deny everything. Try to twist it back on you. I nodded. I know. She paused again. So, what's our plan? And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. I think it's time your parents met the real me, not the version they invented. The one who doesn't just take pictures, but knows how to tell a story that no one can unsee. That night, we returned to their house, tripod in hand, camera rolling. For the family archives, I said as I hit record. Charles looked irritated. Veronica looked like she hadn't slept. They tried, of course. Denials, gaslighting, accusations. But every time they spoke, I pressed play. Clip after clip, quote after quote. Every time they contradicted themselves, I handed over another printed document. And finally, Maya stood. Her voice was clear, calm, unshaking. I love you both. You're my parents, but what you've done is not love. It's control. And that ends today. Liam stood beside her. Emily quietly wiped her eyes. Veronica began to cry. But it wasn't regret. It was realization. She'd lost. Charles just looked stunned, like the idea of losing power never occurred to him. Before we left, I handed Charles a USB drive. "What's this?" he asked. "It's everything. Footage, documents, emails. You can keep it." He narrowed his eyes. "Why would you give this to me?" I shrugged. "Because I don't need to ruin your life. That would hurt Maya, and I'd never do that." But I stepped closer. "If you ever interfere in our marriage again, if you speak against me or try to control her, we both know where this goes." His face tightened, and for the first time since I met him, I saw something that looked like respect. "You're not who I thought you were," he said quietly. "No," I replied, "I'm not." 6 months passed. Maya and Liam started therapy. Boundaries were drawn. Lines were held. Veronica and Charles stayed distant but careful. They sent texts, cards, invitations, but never crossed the line again. Then, during the holidays, a letter arrived from Charles's lawyer. Inside was the deed to our home, the one we'd been renting. Signed over to us. No note, no explanation, just surrender. Maya held the paper in her hands. "This isn't an apology," she said. "No," I replied. "But it's the closest they'll ever come." When our daughter was born in the summer, we named her Eliza, after my grandmother. Veronica and Charles came to the hospital. They smiled. They took pictures. And for once, they left without offering parenting advice. They finally understood this story no longer belonged to them. That fall, I opened my first gallery in downtown Vancouver. Photos I had taken on my own terms, without permission, without approval, without apology. Charles and Veronica came. They stayed 30 minutes. They didn't speak much. But before he left, Charles looked at one of my prints. "A landscape I shot in Alberta." He nodded once, then walked out. Later that night, Maya stood with me on the porch, holding Eliza in her arms. "Do you think they've changed?" she asked. I looked out at the dark, quiet street. "No," I said. But they've accepted that they can't change us. And sometimes that's enough. Because in the end, I didn't win by shouting. I didn't win by controlling. I won by refusing to play their game at all. I told the truth. I stood my ground. And I built a life on my own terms, with the woman I love, the child we made, and a future no one gets to rewrite. And that was the final frame.